We're going to look at Clyde Winters here today.
Or black people. Here we see the Neptunes.
He thinks that the ancient Minoans, or Macedonian people, Cretians, if you will, that they were Negroids. Now you see their long locks hanging down on the sides of their head, which showed you a relation to like the Libyans and a lot of people, and Jesus of Nazareth, and so on. These are just tan people, but let's listen to what he says here. I just want to show you something that may look like a pillow on that man's head, but that's metal. They formed them in these type of ingots. There's also a nice golden bowl that's made here and things. And this is, of course, from people that had boats and so on. And the one thing they show a lot of times on these guys, but not always, is they had these fancy-ass sandal boots that didn't quite look just like everybody else's sandal boots. It's one of the things they show different. They always make everybody's pants a little different than each other, and they almost make them exactly the same or patterns. A lot of times they're the same pants and shirt on everybody, and they only look slightly different than each other. Little things like that, you know, just representation.
Meyer, governor of Thebes in 1400 BC. The Minoans were blacks or sub-Saharan Africans.
No.
We know this because of the Greco-Roman documents and Minoan iconography. Granted, many of the Minoan murals appear to resemble Europeans, but these artifacts are fake or repainted artifacts to deny the original African ancestry of the ancient Cretans.
Now, down there in the bottom he says that this guy, which is a picture of one of the architects, Sir Arthur Evans, who actually helped restore some of Crete's things. He says he's a liar, fraudster, and false history fabricator, that because they restored some of the spots and blotches that had come off of the things, they had ruined the entire picture. It's amazing. Watch what links he goes to here, and I'll show you a few truths, and I think that'll be about enough for this guy.
This view is supported by Kathy Gear in her book, Kenosis and the Prophets of Modernism. Mary Beard wrote, "The truth is that these famous icons are largely modern. As any sharp-eyed visitor to the Heraclean Museum can spot, what survives the original paintings amount in most cases to no more than a few square inches.
All these pale people.
The rest is more or less imaginative reconstruction, commissioned in the first half of the 20th century by Sir Arthur Evans, the British excavator of the Palace of Kenosis, and the man who coined the term Minoan for this prehistoric Cretan civilization, after the mythical king Minos, who is said to have held the throne there.
Yeah, King Minos.
As a general rule of thumb, the more famous the image is now, the less it is actually ancient." In other words, Sir Arthur Evans did much to make the Minoan artifacts look like Europeans. Many of these paintings are fakes. Most of the dolphin fresco, for example, was painted by the Dutch artist, architect, and restorer Piet de Jong.
And those are Negro dolphins or what?
In the 1920s, and whose watercolors and drawings of archaeological finds in Athens, Kenosis, and elsewhere were featured in a 2006.
I wish he'd quit saying Kenosis. It's just Gnosis. But, he helped restore some of these. See, like this piece is falling off? There's little pieces falling off everywhere. And they took the little pieces off the ground and stuck them back on, and then painstakingly matched the paint in certain places so you didn't see the cracks, and put it back up there and redid it. But somehow he's trying to relate this to the fact that Negroes are there. Probably because they redid some of the artifacts and stuff, that they replastered some of the walls. Let's see how much of it's missing. I mean, is it like, oh, their noses are missing and that makes them black? What is it that makes them black?
At the Benaki Museum in Athens, curated by John Papadopoulos. The Prince of the Lilies is an earlier restoration from 1905 by the Swiss artist Emile Guillon. Here we have the original and restoration of the mural.
Okay. So here's the original and the restoration. And you can see what's cool about it is that they thickened the plaster to make the actual body on the wall. And it was just adhered to the wall and it fell off. It's not like the Sumerians where they actually ground the wall down. But at this time, these people have advanced plaster like concretes and so on. and they're putting them on. And you can see that this right here is just a tan pale person, and there's a non-prognostic jaw and a very alkaline nose, right? You can see the colors here and the colors here. You can also see the colors behind her and how it matches the wall, right? Okay, so she's wearing that. You can see the little blue they had in here. You look over here, they got the blue, they got everything else. Here's the restoration. The only problem I have with this is that this isn't the restoration. This is a painting somebody did of the restoration, and they added flowers, but he's going to try to say, look, they tried to make it look more whitey. Okay, I agree that this skin tone here doesn't look quite the skin tone right there. But I also agree that none of this looks Negroid whatsoever. But he's trying hard. He says, because they're slightly tanner, which look less like normal white people, especially these people living right on the equator. But here he goes, oh, they have to be Negroids.
In this case, it is far from certain that the original fragment, a small piece of the head and crown, but not the face, part of the torso and a piece of thigh, ever belonged to the same painting.
He says it's doubtful they ever belonged to the same painting. I think you can kind of tell it fit like puzzle pieces. They're just missing the other pieces to it. And you can make a reference to it. Now, of course, if you look, I told you again, this is somebody else's painting. Look how this is not even it. You see how the arm is going in a different angle? And then instead of having the plume going this way, in this artist rendition, they have it as a plume coming out of her head rather than it being a feathered fan. This is not even the same thing whatsoever. It's the same similar stance. Well, you can do that with Egyptians all damn day long. The one thing about it is the females are pale because they're kept fair skinned, and the males are going to have that same red ochre type color as the Egyptian Caucasians too. Look at this long, curly, flowing hair here. Huh? Let's listen.
Here we have another artifact from Minoan. Here we see three ladies. This artifact is found in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York.
Great.
I quote, "This group of three women was originally restored by E. Guillaume Pierre on the base of other fragments of frescoes from Knossos, mostly of a much smaller scale." End of quote. Nope.
Really? Look at these ladies with their long curly hair, and it's all bound up on top of their head with little pearls and necklaces and things. Look at their non-prognostic jaws. Yeah, like old white girl. Yeah, pale. Well, what's missing before the restoration, if you look, the restoration are them picking up pieces of plaster and just sticking it back on there. In other cases, it wasn't quite round, so they stuck it on there and kind of painted it in. But that's a white hand. If this is missing, it doesn't make it a Negroid. They're saying, well, under it, it's dark. Believe it or not. They're like, well, that's rock. That's a wall. They plastered over the wall, and then they painted women as fair women that are very pale. Look, this is white, very pale tan hands, very pale women. Not Negroids. There's no Bantu knots. There's nobody wobbling their heads around. There's no Nubian forehead bulge. There's no Negroid prognathism whatsoever. But yet he's trying hard.
Here within the red outlines. Look carefully.
Look carefully.
These are supposed to be the original fragments upon which the restoration are based. Also note that on different restorations, even the fragments are different and show different skin color for the same fresco, which is proof that they were fake. But as you can notice, instead of these colors being the white skin associated with these women in this fresco, we see that the skin color is really brown and red, the color of black.
He's trying to say the places that are missing paint that show the stone wall behind it are brown, therefore the pale women drawn on top of it on top of plaster that is flaked off, that are Caucasians, and very pale ones at that, are somehow Negroids now. That these are Negroid women. He's really trying hard to get black people to believe it. The sad thing is there are black people that buys this guy's books and believe his crap. Look at this trash. Let's continue a few more just silly things.
Euronuts never give up trying to white out blacks from ancient history.
Euronuts never try to whiting out blacks from history. There are no black Minoans. There's no black people in these pictures. There were no black people above sub-Saharan Africa. The only contact anybody ever had of Caucasians were the Caucasian Egyptians that ran into a people called the Nubians. They weren't allowed into Egypt by steles and stuff, and they sure as hell weren't allowed through it. There's no contact like that. But there are people that used to go out and hunt them because they were worth more dead than alive. All you had to do was have their hand. Many steles profess this fact. So if you have Egypt telling you that black people are not allowed and all this stuff, why would they be black people? Oh, they could tell the difference. It's different kinds of black people. Really? The West Africans that are talking all this crap have no idea what the difference between black people is. They don't know the difference between a West African primitive or anybody that's up from northeastern Africa either. Ethiopians, anything. They have no contact or any connection to any of these people, but they try hard. They try hard not to be the primitives that they just recently were just a few generations ago, and everybody knows. You can still see them. Let's continue.
Result, you have to repeatedly show how false their propositions are. Population genetics cannot change history, and archaeology except in the mind of the confused and promoters of Eurocentrism.
Sounds like he's
the Greeks
reading.
made it clear the Minoans came from Africa and were descendants of the Garamantes. The Garamantes founded civilization in Minoa, or ancient Crete.
Garamantes.
The Garamantes were Mandi speakers, not Berbers.
No, the Garamantes were of the Berber clan, and they were not Mande speakers. Now, they were the Garama people. We'll get into them here in a minute. Let's see what he says. Let's see him hang himself, and then I'll try to unhook him.
The Tuareg did not come from the Fazan. They originated in the east. According to Tuareg tradition, they originated in the Tal Falaf Filet, an important oasis of the Moroccan Sahara, and migrated from Morocco to their present location in the Fazan.
Yep, that's Berbers.
Ever since Arthur Evans discovered the hieroglyphic and linear A writing of Crete, there's been a search for the authors of this writing.
I'm sorry for his mumbling.
Some Grecian traditions indicate that Libyans called Garamantes formerly lived on Crete. This suggests that the Cretans may have spoken one of the ancient languages of Libya. Edio-Cretan is just another name for the ancient Minoans. Edio simply means that these people were the first Cretans. The name Garamantes illustrates affinity to the Mandi morphology and grammar.
No, it doesn't.
The Mandi people live in West Africa, along the Niger River, and all the way to the Atlantic coast. The Mandi language...
Yeah, they're in far West Africa on the Ivory Coast. Had no contact. It's kind of a Sahara Desert in between the West African Caucasians up north and the West African Ivory Coast black people. There's no contact in elder times. We know when that contact started with Islamic slave trade, well over 900 years.
A member of the so-called Niger-Congo group of languages.
Yeah.
The name for the Mandi tribe is called Mande. Mande is made up of two words, Ma, which means mother, and Inde, which means children. In other words, the term Mande can be interpreted as children of Ma, or mother's children.
Oh, he's preying on the fact that blacks usually don't have a father, but they've got a mother, and so they're mother's children, so you're going to relate to this bullshit he's throwing at you. That's terrible. Let's continue, and I'll show you something about Garamantes.
And we find that the Mandi had a matrilineal descent. The word Garamantes can be broken down into Blinky Bambar also. What we get is Ga, hearth, arid or hot, and Mandi. The name of the Mandi-speaking tribe means that Garamante can be interpreted as Mandy of the arid lands, or arid land.
No. A Garama, and then therefore they're the Garama, and Garamante is the people of that area. It's the way linguistics break down. This guy has no idea what he's talking about, and you can tell he's reading from something. Let's continue.
Of the children of Ma. This last term is quite interesting because by the time the Greeks and Romans learned about the Garamantes, the land was becoming increasingly arid. The murals from thier show how the Minoans really looked.
Well, now, let's just go back before he starts trying to go off and look at that. Let's see what Garamantes look like. Well, Herodotus is always a nice place to go whenever you're looking at ancient histories, although I'll show you right here where you can take what Herodotus says with a grain of salt because of some of the oddities that he says of things. But of course, he relates a lot of this as to where they say this, they say that. And in other words, it kind of shows you that he didn't really experience that much. He was just told certain things. In a lot of cases, he never showed up there. He tells you, on the Garamantes, Herodotus, right here. Further inland to the southward is the part of Libya where the wild beasts are found. Live in the Garamantes to avoid all intercourse with men, possess no weapons of war, and do not know how to defend themselves. Strange that he says this, but not along the coast to the westward. The neighbors of the Minoans are the Maasai, are the Macedonians. Anyhow, these people wear their hair in the form of a crest, shaving it close on either side of the head and letting it grow long in the middle. In the war, they carry ostrich skins for shields over their head and letting it grow. The river Cyneps, which rises on a hill called the Hill of the Graces, runs through their territory to the sea. So they live off that river that runs there. Indeed, what they are is just west of the Libyans and a little bit east of Carthage and Tunis, but not far. But Carthage and Tunis aren't far. Let's see what they say here, though. The Hill of the Graces is about 25 miles inland and is densely wooded, unlike the rest of Libya so far described, which is bare of trees. Indeed, they talked about it becoming arid in this times, and Herodotus is only there in 300 or so. 10 days' journey west of the Ammonians, or the Ammonites, or where Ammon is listed, which is in Libya. Takes 10 days to go left to go there, okay? Not that far. Along the belt of sand, there is another similar salt hill and spring. This place called Aguila is also inhabited, and it is there that the Nesmonians come for their date harvest. Again, at the same distance to the west is a salt hill and spring, just as before, with date palms of the fruit-bearing kind, as in the other oases, and here live the Garamantes, a very numerous tribe of people who spread soil over their salt to sow their seed in. Well, we know that really wouldn't work well because they penetrate down in through the soil into the sand. I mean, how much thick soil you got to put on it? Where are they getting this soil? Anyhow, he tells you this. Then from these people is the shortest route, 30 days' journey to the Lotophagi, and it is amongst them that the cattle are found which walk backwards as they graze. Now, Lotophagi is in another one of my videos, but it shows them on the northern Mediterranean coast, and they're really at the place where the Garamantes is. So if it took 10 days west to get to them, why would it take 30 more to get to Lotophagi, which is less than 1/3 the distance of the... It makes no sense, but he tells you where cattle are found which walk backwards as they graze. The reason for this curious habit is provided by the formation of their horns, which bend forwards and downwards. This prevents them from moving forwards in the ordinary way, for if they tried to do so, their horns would stick in the ground. In other respects, they are just like ordinary cattle, except for the thickness and toughness of their hide. The Garamantes hunt the Ethiopian whole men, or troglodytes. Now, troglodytes means primitive, unaware cave dwellers. Yeah, you can look up the definition. But the Garamantes hunt the Ethiopian Holmen or troglodytes in 4-horse chariots, for these troglodytes are exceedingly swift of foot, more so than any people of whom we have any information. So that's black people, Ethiopians. Yes, so they go way up into the desert and chase these people. Apparently, they make money off of it by sacrificing, getting their hands. Anyhow, he tells you that these troglodytes, they eat snakes and lizards and other reptiles and speak a language like no other, but squeak like bats. Now you have to take some of this with a grain of salt. He tells you cattle move backwards and crap on there, but he does tell you these guys chase them in 4-horse chariots for the troglodytes. Now, an interesting, the Hyksos, or who supposedly brought the horses and the chariots down into there. They didn't have chariots, horses back then. They had simple cart horses and donkeys, but that's very unreliable. I mean, try to get a donkey to do anything. But that's what is said about the Garamantes. We don't need to go any farther than that, but we're going to listen to him a little bit more here and just see how bad he gets with it.
The murals from thier. You can see the rich brown and red colors of these Africans who live in the Aegean Sea.
No, this is red ochre color here, and if you ever found a woman or a priest, they'd be pale. There's one right there, pale. 2 priests, pale. The rest of them, this guy's pretty much pale, and the rest of them here are all, yeah, and it's just red ochre. And this picture does look darkened a little bit to me, like somebody hit some contrast onto it, but we're going to leave it alone.
The Garamantes found the civilization in Minoa, or ancient Crete, and the Fezzan. The Garamantes, as I said earlier, were Mandi speakers.
According to the Egyptians, they're part of the Egyptian tribe that lives there that were warriors for them. In fact, just as I read to you plainly, it tells you in other accounts the Egyptian warriors chased the primitive Negroid troglodytes, right? And this is the same account, the same differential of it. And it shows you who and what's going on. And the Garaman go all the way down into here. So they get down into here and then come over and apparently chase these black people. There's the Niger River, they call it, that leads right down into what actually is West Africa. I mean, here's Senegal right here. Okay, so anyhow.
Roman mythology gets the hype because Eurocentrism presents it as their own history.
Black people aren't going to get any hype because they try to present this as their own history. This is sad. You're saying somebody that looked like this was the guy in Homer's Iliad and that they were in the battle for Troy. This is getting more and more disgusting as we go along, but he doesn't give a damn.
Although they present much of Greco-Roman mythology as European history, much of this is really talking about the black people, talking about the original black people that ruled in the Aegean Sea.
Now he's got black people all up out of sub-Saharan Africa, all the way through the Sahara Desert, messing with these guys, and apparently they've got boats now. Negroids never made a boat that was seaworthy whatsoever, but now he's saying they were the great seafarers of the Aegean Sea. This is disgusting and hilarious and very pitiful. Let's continue, though.
For example, is called Xanthos. Xanthos means black man. The leading character in
Xanthos does not mean black man. And let's see what you try to say about Xanthos.
In Homer's books were Negro or black men and women. There are many light-skinned Africans who have never mixed with Europeans. Apollo in Homer's Iliad was called Shuraseiphorus, bearing a golden sword. Artemis is Eustephanos, which has no relation to fair. Neptune is Cyantrochus, bluish or blackish like dark deep waves of the ocean. Achilles was Xanthos, brown.
Okay. Artemis being Eustephanos. Eustephanos is pale and usually related to red hair. Neptune being Cyanokites, bluish or blackish, like dark deep waves of the ocean, are the description of his eyes. That his eyes were the sea, and they were a deep blue. Now that's, of course, Caucasian God that they have going on. I mean, how disgusting and stupid is this? Achilles is Xanthos, brown. Brown. See what Xanthos means here. Xanthos is usually chiefly in the German and Greek languages. Why those two people? Well, and it's derived from Old Greek origins. It is derived literally from the old word Xanthos, meaning yellow, golden, fair. Xanthos, Old Greek, and Xanthus, Old Greek, are original forms of Xanthos. Xanthos is rarely used for baby names, though. And I'm sure the name of your kid Xanthos. Xanthos! It doesn't sound right, but Xanthos means golden, fair hair. Let's see if there's any other, what is the meaning for Xanthos? Let's see, Xanthos, it means golden haired. Let's see, meaning of yellow or golden hair. Xanthos is yellow. Yeah, whenever, what's funny is, if you ever do fish, live tropical fish, like the saltwater fish, in Hawaii, they have those yellow tangs. They're just like a round yellow moon looking fish that swim all around. Yeah, and their name is Xanthos, and they're yellow. Yellow, it's blonde, really, is what it means. During the Persian invasions, the river subway was called Yellow by the Greek Xanthos, which also means yellow. That's the Yellow River. Now, Xanthos, what's strange about this is Garamantes is kin to the Garaman people, the Juraman people, the blonde-haired people that had migrated up into Germany and, of course, probably migrated and blended with the people that were already there in somewhat, but these people that were from near Atlantis, the Atlas Mountains are just behind their shoulders to the left. They lived up in the wadi areas or oases that were fastly disappearing, and they left, but yet they're described as being blonde-haired Xanthos, not skin, and Xanthos doesn't mean Negroid skin. If it was yellow skin, it would be kind of Asiatic, but no, it wasn't skin. Xanthos is hair. All these people are Caucasians, and the only differential they have are like hair and customs, because they're all Caucasians, and they always ever were. So that's this ancient idiot right here who really knows nothing about ancient cultures. Tell he's got a lot of admix to him. Clyde Winters. Apparently he writes books. Sell these to pitiful black people who want to believe something other than their true heritage. It's kind of disgusting, but ancient Minoan DNA proves that they were blacks. No, and he doesn't show any DNA in this thing whatsoever either. I've watched the whole thing. What he does show is that they show that the ancient Caucasians that lived around the Mediterranean are kin to the Germanic people and kin to the other people there and kin to people that are on Minoans. And so they can make that connection. And he's going, well, that means that the Minoans and Crete people are black. And it's like, no, none of these people are black. None of them are. And an important note, all of the West Africans have nothing to do with any of these people that they're even dreaming up. They were, and always will be, West African primitives. That's all that they were. Not Egyptians, not Minoans, not Moors. No, they were West Africans, primitives that captured and sold their own people like a drive-through slave mart. It's been proven. And we're not going to be able to get anywhere if we keep lying. It's going to make you the disgusting liars out of the world for the next hundreds and hundreds of years, although black people probably don't care. Like, share, and subscribe, guys. Enjoy. Another one down.